Hello my dear friends, I am Sethuram from Nivedita Academy. The topic of the discussion today is historical background of the Indian Constitution. You all know that East India Company had entered into India in 1602. In 1600, Queen Elizabeth I gave a charter. It gave the monopoly for East India Company to do trade and commerce with India. They entered into India in 1602, but later on they started to indulge in political affairs in our country. First they got the Diwan in West Bengal. Then they made a lot of political affairs throughout India. This made our India to be under them. There were so many princely states. They were all having friendly relationship with the British East India Company, but finally they succumbed to they have to give up their states to the company. This was the state of affairs at the time. Later on, when we started our movement for independence, our leaders had a meeting, a conference. In 1935, a veteran communist leader, A.N. Roy, told that we also should have our own constitution. We started demanding the British government that we should form a constitution for ourselves. To know about the Constitution of India, we should study the historical background and what backgrounds we had previously, that we should know. Till 1773, there was no law passed by the British government to regulate the activities of the East India Company. Though East India Company had entered into India in 1602, till 1773, there was no control, no regulation on the affairs of British East India Company. There were a lot of complaints about the employees who were working in the company. There were so many bribe activities. The people were getting bribe from the people, and they indulge in unlawful activities. Doing political affairs is not the state. The British government did not give any orders to the British East India Company. It gave only to do the business, trade and commerce. But the company indulged in some other activities also. It was against the policy of the British government. So there were a lot of the people who had joined the company as employee. They went back to England with a hefty funds. They built up palaces, houses, buildings, lot of things. All this because they swindled money in India. So this was brought to the notice of the British Parliament. So British Parliament had to control this affair. It regulated a lot of laws. In the first 1773, British Parliament enacted a law. It brought a board of control. It regulated the affairs of the companies. The Governor of Bengal was designated to the Governor General of Bengal. The first Governor General of Bengal was Warren Hastings. There were 4 members appointed in the Executive Council which assisted Warren Hastings, the Governor General of Bengal. Then first Supreme Court was established in 1774 with one Chief Justice and 3 judges. And there were the law, this regulation Act 1773 stated that no employee of the British East India Company should indulge in any other activities other than the company affairs. He should not get any bribe from the people. So Court of Directors have to report to the British Parliament about the revenue of the company. So this was the regulation, first regulation. Then within another 10 years, there were so many grievances. The people made a lot of complaints. So the then Prime Minister of British Parliament, Mr. William Pitt the Younger, his name was Pitt William the Younger. Under his head there was a commission. The commission gave its report. That report took away some of the remedies which were found in 1773 Act. Some of the errors were there. These errors were all removed by Pitt India Act. What was that? Under this, there were 2 boards were appointed. One was Board of Directors, and another one is Court of Directors, another one is Board of Control. Court of Directors, okay, it also reduced the strength of Executive Council from 4 to 3. And the Board of Control was brought under the the political affairs of the state were controlled by Board of Control, direct control of the British government by this time. And governors, due to the Governor General of West Bengal, now the British Parliament said that thereafter whatever the possessions held by the East India Company should be the possessions of British government, they said. And then 1813, another one Charter Act was enacted. This terminated the company's monopoly of trade in India. Thereafter, East India Company was terminated to do any kind of business with India. All the British people can do any business with India. That kind of liberalization was given to the people of British. In 1833, you should know, as far as the examination point of view, you see, 1773, one act, Regulation Act. Pitt India Act also was Regulation Act. It is another 11 years afterwards, another act was also brought. And then next, 1813, another 20 years gap is there. 1813 is a Charter Act. Another Charter Act was passed in 1833, 20 years. And then third Charter Act was brought in 1853. Just for our studies, it is very easy for us. 20 years gap, 1813, 1833, 1853, right? This 1813 brought the termination of East India Company to do business with India. And all the people of British also were allowed to do the business with India. That was there. In Charter 1833, the Governor of Bengal was designated as Governor General of India. Okay. The first Governor General of India was William Penting. William Penting was the first Governor General. You see, in 1773, according to the 1773 Regulations Act, the Bombay and Madras provinces governors were brought under the control of Governor of Bengal. Governor General of Bengal. Then later on in 1784, Pittenda Act gave the liberalization of these states to the governors of the particular provinces. Then next, in Charter Act 1833, again it was brought under the East India Company, brought under the powers of the Bombay and Chennai, not Chennai, Madras. At that time it was Madras provinces were brought under the Governor General of India. So these two, the commercial bodies, that is what is said, East India Company, its activities were completely terminated, and it became the purely administrative body of the British government. Charter Act 1853, this act brought the Governor General of, it gave the legislative powers and legislative powers to the central legislative powers were given. Accordingly, Governor General's legislative powers and executive powers were separated. Okay, 6 members were appointed in the Council of Legislative Body, where 4 members were from India, and everyone was nominated from a state like Bombay, Madras, Agra and Bengal, like that. Okay, it introduced open competition for employment, for recruiting the people for the British East India Company. This was the first time in 1853, the first time in India, the competitive examination was introduced for appointing the employees for the East India Company. Later on, they were taken for the British government also. And Indians are also were allowed to write the examination. Previously, Indians were forbidden to write this examination first. Later on, they were also allowed to write the examination. So, in 1833, the Charter Act said, after 20 years, the whole administration will be taken over by the British Parliament itself directly. Till that 20 years period, British East India Company only will be having that administration of India. But even after 1853, there was no step taken. So to bring the administration of India under the government of British. So there was at the time 1857, there was a very big revolution happened in India, Sipai revolution. So that revolution, it was very, very big one, and the British government could not control that agitation. It was agitated everywhere in India. There was law and order were very much disturbed. So the government decided. Thereafter, it was very difficult to run the administration of the India. So it wanted to give some more powers to the Indian also. Previously, even the British people were not at all even appointed. British were in the higher posts. Only on the Sipai level, soldier level, our Indians were appointed. Later on, for the higher post also, for administrative purposes, even Indians are also were appointed. Okay. So, in 1858 Act is a Government of India Act, we can say. This is replaced by the Crown of India. Queen Victoria came to India. She had a darbar. She held a darbar in India. Yes. And the powers of the British Crown was exercised by the Secretary of State for India. There was another one post appointed, Secretary of State for India. And he was actually the status of a cabinet minister. And he, under him, in India also, in 1853, legislative, so Viceroy also was appointed. Viceroy Canning, Lord Canning was appointed as a Viceroy of India. So then Secretary of State in India, for India, was working in British, and Viceroy was working here. Under him, all the other provinces were governed by the governors, and nearly 15 members were appointed to assist the Secretary of State for India and the Viceroy. First of all, they were called the Council of India. This 15-member committee was considered the Council of India. Now, the administration of Viceroy was working as an agent for the British government. Governor General was made, Governor General of India was, Governor General of British India was abolished and Viceroy was appointed. And now both the bodies to administer the business of India, commercial activities of India and the political activities in India, both were abolished. The Board of Directors and Board of Control and the Court of Directors. These both the bodies were abolished. In 1861, another one, Indian Council Act was introduced. There, 3 Indians were appointed in the legislative and executive councils. The 3 members, they were very loyal to the British government. Only those people only were appointed. One was Maharaja Benaras. Another one is King of Patiala. Third one is Dinkar Rao. These people were appointed in the Legislative Council of Viceroy, and the Executive Council also was there to assist the Viceroy. And Legislative Councils were appointed both in the center and also in the provinces, So, according to the, first of all, these 15 members were not given any portfolio system. Then they were given portfolio. Everyone was given to look after the administration of particular department, that way. So the council, then 1892, another one, Indian Council Act was enacted. Under that, it introduced the election for the Legislative Council, the indirect election. So the members were elected for the Legislative Council through trade unions, district boards, and Chamber of Commerce. That way, some people were elected, and they were also appointed as members of the council. So, Legislative Council, first of all, it was only 15 in number. Later on, it was increased to 60 numbers. Okay. So, first, during that, till 1892, Indians were only the members of the committee, Legislative Council or Executive Council. They were not allowed to ask any questions about the budget. The welfare of the government was making all these budget allocations only for the welfare of the people of India. But Indian representatives were not allowed to ask any questions about the budget. So there was a demand, but government did not allow. But later on, it has also relaxed its policy to giving some powers just to ask some questions about the budget. Okay. In 1909, Another one, it was the first time there was a demand from the people about the representation. That is a that is a Morley-Minto reform. Morley was the Secretary of State for India. Minto was the Viceroy of India. Both joined together. At the time, they made some reformations. First of all, there was a demand from the Muslims. They wanted at least 5% of their 5% in the Legislative Council. They wanted their representation in the Legislative Council. 5% they wanted. So, first of all, but Gandhiji had no intention. Gandhiji and other Congress leaders had no intention to, even first itself, the West Bengal, the Bengal was bifurcated. There was agitation. The government was making all this bifurcation on the basis of the religion, Muslim and the Hindu, on the basis of that. And Indian people did not like that kind of separation, the state to be separated by that way. And even now, when the British government was ready to give that kind of representation to the Muslim, Gandhiji said, no, it is not good and fair to give representation on the basis of religion. You are dividing our country on the basis of religion. He said like that. But even Muslims also did not like this statement. So there was an agitation. There was no other way for the government also. So there was a round table conference in London. At the time, even Mahatma Gandhi did not go and attend that meeting also. He abstained the meeting. But B.R. Ambedkar and Muhammad Ali Jinnah both were attending that function, attending the meeting. But because of the absence of Indian other representation from the Congress, that meeting was postponed. But there was then later on in Lahore, a pact was made. So it was called a Lahore Pact between Mahatma Gandhi and Muhammad Ali Jinnah. There was a pact, an agreement. Accordingly, Muslims were given 5% representation in the Legislative Council, and also the people are also elected from different ways. Zamindars were given representation, trade unions were given representation, district boards were there at the time, they were also given some representation, the commercial bodies also were given representation. So that way that Legislative Council was filled up. Now the committee, it was first of all only 60 members were there. Now the Central Legislative Council was occupied by nearly 140 members. And even State Legislative Council, they were about nearly, it was also increased to 60 members. So it was there. So a separate electorate system was also there. It was the first time in India the election was brought. The people who were nominated to the Legislative Council through the election. From these bodies had elected a member, and they sent their representative to the committee, Legislative Council, like that. The Indian, for the first time in India, a Viceroy's Executive Council was appointed. He was Satyendra Prasanna Sinha. Satyendra Prasanna Sinha was the first person who was appointed in the Executive Council. Previously, no member from India was appointed in the Executive Council of the Viceroy. He was the first person. And then Indian Government of India Act 1919. Then second one, Christians also, not only Christians, SC, ST, these people also demanded. They wanted their representation in the Legislative Council. It was brought forward by Ambedkar, B.R. Ambedkar. And at the time, B.R. Ambedkar was in Pune, and Gandhiji also was in Pune jail. So both they had an agreement. So SC, ST also were given representation. Apart from that, Christians and Parsis and some other even Anglo-Indians, they were also given representation. So that way, the Legislative Council was filled up with members from different sources. Okay. So there was at first there was Central Legislative Council was there, State Provincial Legislative Council also was there. They had separate powers, just like what we have now. We have central list, state list, and then concurrent list. Just like that, this was the first time in 1919. Was the first time different lists were. That was called that is what is it? Transferred list and reserved list. Transferred list. All the powers were with the viceroy, and some of the powers were transferred to the provincial states. That was that province. That was all these provincial state powers were all looking up for the welfare of the people. Health, water, sanitation, education, and all these things were brought to the provincial state. Central state, that was called reserved state, reserved list. Reserved list, the viceroy was the head, and according to that Legislative Council of Central Legislative Council would pass laws. The portfolios were there, and they were taking care of the external and the business and the money, banking, and all these things were brought under all these things. Nearly, first of all, there were only 15. That was increased to 60. Then now it was increased to 140 members in Central Legislative Council, and there were direct elections also were there, right? And Act also recruited a 6th member. First of all, 4 members were there. Then it was reduced to 3 members. Now 6-member committee was there for the Viceroy's Executive Council. And then Indian Government of India Act 1935. It was a very important act. In 1935 Act, I did not say to you. Now I tell you. During this act brought All India Federation. All the provinces in India and the people, the government looked after by the British government, all were brought under this system. That is All India Federation. Okay. And then princely states, they were also in that organization. And there were nearly three lists. One is a federal list, and another one is provincial list. Third one is another one, a concurrent list. The concurrent list was first introduced in 1935. Even now, that list is there with us. There were about 59 items in federal list, and then nearly about 54 were in provincial list. 36 items were in concurrent list. Okay, like that. This is some of the powers which were the residuary powers given to the Viceroy. Whatever was not included in this, any of the items not included in this list were taken over, and it was passed over by the residuary powers of the Viceroy. Okay, that way. Previously the diarchy system was there. Now provincial autonomy was given there. The Central Legislative Council and the State Legislative, they both were given. Now they were both were working under their and the powers given. That's all. But the state was given more power to take care of the people. Center was not given that much importance. Okay, that was. Nearly previously there were only 3. First of all, Bengal was there, and then Madras province was there, Bombay was there. Later on, some other Agra, and then Northeast, Punjab, like that. Now there are nearly about 11 provinces were introduced. Okay, provinces included. And then Council of India Act was, Council of India was abolished, and this our government, this provincial government and central the Viceroy government only were taking care of the administration of the country. Okay, that was there. In 1942, Quit India movement was there. There was a big agitation. British people were asked to leave the country, quit India. Okay, that was there. And even 1927, when Simon Commission was appointed to study whatever the possibilities, what are the other to take care of the people's welfare. Okay, any other reformation to be brought, but there was no representation from India in that commission. So the people were agitating against Simon. John Simon was the chairman of the commission, but there was no use of the agitation. The commission entered into India. It traveled throughout India and listened to the grievances of the people, and finally it gave its report after 3 years. In 1930, it gave its report to the British government accordingly, and this 1935 act also was enacted. Okay, in 1942, Quit India movement, and British government was ready to give freedom to India later on. In 1947, and at that time Attlee was there. He only announced that India would be given freedom once they give support to British in the Second World War, and we also, our leaders also were ready to give support to the British government, and there some other modalities were working to frame the Constitution of India. In 1946, we started a cabinet mission was sent from British. They were the members of the committee, members of the parliament. They came to India. They gave guidance to the British, to the Indian leaders. So as a result, we framed cabinet Indian Constitution Assembly. We formed Constitution Assembly. There were about nearly 387 members were there in that Constitution Assembly. Later on, Pakistan was bifurcated, so nearly 90 members left, and some 4 or 5 people died during that time. And finally, nearly 283 members signed that agreement, signed that our Constitution. We framed a Constitution. That way, our Constitution was framed. Okay, that's all. Thank you very much.